Hello and welcome to Big Picture. I am Vishal Dahiya, and today we are going to talk about International Day of Democracy, which is celebrated every year on 15th of September as an opportunity to review the state of democracy in the entire world. Now, this year's theme, that is for year 2020, for this particular day is COVID-19, a spotlight on democracy. The idea here is to go ahead and look at the challenges which have been thrown at us by the COVID-19 pandemic, both in terms of social challenges, cultural ones, and political as well, and the way the elected governments or the democratic countries have handled these challenges and dealt with their people, citizens as well, to try and keep their faith and trust also. So we'll look at all these aspects and the impact of these challenges, specifically with respect to COVID-19 on the state of democracy across the world. And for more on this, we're joined by a distinguished panel of guests. Let me first introduce them to you, beginning with, we have Mr. Ashok Tandon. He's a senior journalist. We're also joined by Ms. Urvashi Prasad. She's a public policy specialist at Niti Aayog. And we're joined by Jiten Jain, a data and cyber expert, somebody who can make us understand the use of technology and also various concerns which have been raised in the past few months during these pandemic times. So let me begin with you, Mr. Tandon, and let's start by understanding the very concept of not only this particular day, but when we talk about democracy in general.
See, democracy is not only a way of life, it's a goal also. The world community has to achieve the goal of a transparent democracy. And India is a shining example of that, because in the last more than 70 years, Indian democracy has come of age. And I remember there used to be a time when the Western democracies used to mock Indian democracy as a ramshackle democracy, because there used to be only one party rule or one family rule. Now, over the years, Indian people have transformed the picture of Indian democracy. The governments are changed in the elections. Multi-party system is working in this country. We have also experimented coalition government. So therefore, we can take pride in being one of the largest democracies in the world, and also a very successful democracy. We have a system of checks and balances. We have independent judiciary. We have free press. So therefore, any anomaly which is coming in the way of a successful democracy, whether it relates to human rights or freedom of press, any infringement of that is taken care of by the inbuilt system of independent judiciary and free press. So therefore, I think as far as Indian democracy is concerned, the worldwide recognition is there. And there have been certain attempts by some of our adversaries to highlight the human rights violation or some infringement of the freedom of press at the international fora. But nobody has come in support of those allegations. Indian democracy has been, in fact, welcomed. So when we talk of the pandemic, I think one of the most transparent democracies is India. Our parliament is functioning. We are holding elections. And we are, in fact, exchanging information regarding pandemic with the rest of the world. We are even, in fact, exchanging not only information about the pandemic, but also remedial measures. We are partner in vaccine development. We are, in fact, exporting medicines to more than 150 countries. So India today, when we look at it, or rather think of reviewing a democracy, experiment of democracy in India, we can very highly and raise our head high and say that we are a successful democracy, even in the pandemic.
Okay, that indeed is an apt sum up of not only the concept of democracy, but quite rightly there, as Mr. Tandon said, that India is a shining example of a working democracy wherein all aspects of people's life are taken care of, which has inbuilt checks and balances as well. Let's now, come to the COVID-19 pandemic and specific challenges out there. And Mr. Tandon pointed out, Urvashi, I'd like to bring you in here. These past few months, all of us, starting from the common citizen to the policy maker to the strategists at every level, bureaucrats, politicians, elected representatives as well, have dealt with unknown sort of challenges at every nook and corner, and they seem to have been dealt with with precision and with the use of technology and sort of modifying our strategies as well. So how do you look at the challenges which have been thrown at us by this particular pandemic and the way we have responded as a democratic country?
Yeah, I think at the outset, I would say that it is quite difficult, to be a democracy and more so a federal structure and be tackling something like a pandemic. Because we are not able to adopt a lot of the means that some other countries which have been praised in a way for their handling of the pandemic, be it Vietnam or be it Thailand. These are very unitary forms of government. They have used a lot of command and control approaches. Vietnam brought in the military to man its quarantine centers, for instance. So there are trade-offs, and these are very important because in a pandemic, your individual rights and freedoms can be at loggerheads with what is collectively required. So it is a fine balance, and there are tremendous trade-offs in a situation like this. But I think at least a couple of the approaches that the government has tried to use here, one has definitely been to try and work with different levels of the government, as I said, center and states, even within states, mobilize the district administrations, the municipalities. And the other has been to really engage the local communities. Because the other set of countries which has done quite well or relatively well so far have been countries like Japan, for instance, where wearing masks or following certain norms in public places are actually very much part of the culture. Now, in India, this might not be the case because we are a very diverse country. We have very different, levels of literacy, of cultures, of religious beliefs. So it's definitely much more complex for us. So there has been a concerted effort by the government to involve people, to go along with people, to engage them in this whole process. And also civil society. I think I would like to point out that civil society in India during the pandemic has done a fantastic job in reaching out to groups that the government might have otherwise found difficult to pay as much attention to, be it women, be it people with disabilities, be it with senior citizens. So I think it's truly been a partnership. And of course, there are limitations, there are trade-offs, as I mentioned. But I think that's part of being a democracy and having to manage this sort of very unusual situation, as you put it.
Okay. So there are limitations and there are certain factors as well, such as cultural diversity out there, federal system of government also, but seemingly Indian democracy and Indian democratic setup has done really well in these challenging times. But one very important aspect here has been the use of technology also, something which we have been discussing so far on various of our programs, how technology has been put to use to find solutions to unique problems which have been thrown at us. Jiten, how would you define, the utilization of technology, as this again is a double-edged sword? We will also have to, and we have been watching out for, various anomalies out there, such as fake news.
You see, it is like this, that, a democracy survives and shines as long as the fundamental rights of people are protected. And, we have seen at the times of emergency, ADM, Jabalpur, Keshwanand, Bharti. And one, lesson we all, as society, we have learned and we have all, celebrated a moment when Supreme Court said even during emergencies, the right to life cannot be suspended. It also means that right to life is above any fundamental right. It may not be first among equals, it is beyond other rights. And in a way now it also shows it is a fundamental duty of any government to ensure that they protect that right of life for every citizen in society. Now, in the times of pandemic, if a government is given a choice that to save the life of thousands and thousands of citizens, you might have to do a little trade-off for the time being as a temporary measure to curb a bit of free speech or take away a little bit of privacy to ensure that we collectively as a society stay safe, secure, and survive this pandemic. So that choice was there in front of many democracies, and I think, including India, almost every democracy has made that choice, that the right to, the duty to protect many lives in the society would prevail over all other rights. In that context, technology has been used in the pandemic time for three primary reasons. One, originally was for contact tracing, which created a lot of controversies, not only in India, many other countries. That there were allegations that governments across the world might use this, opportunity to further curtail free speech or surveil upon citizens or curb, dissenting views and stuff. But then, and India also, when the Arogya Setu came up, there was a section of society which are, so-called liberal people who said that, no, boss, if you install Arogya Setu, every data is going to government. These people are going to use it for elections, to snoop upon you, surveil upon you, and there is no legal framework, and that is why government should not do it. But, we must all understand that even if you give that data, I mean, you obviously your little bit of privacy is gone, but that massive amount of contact tracing across India using technology, by using CDR location in certain states, by using GPS and Wi-Fi locations in Arogya Setu, we have been able to delay our peak and save many, many lives in the initial 3-4 months. Now, if you look in UK, when the issue of technological surveillance came on, people said that, look, countries like Israel can afford to do massive contact surveillance because they have got technology, and they are more of a security oriented country. So they could do it, but not countries like UK or India. So the UK Information Commission, when the issue came up in the first month of pandemic, they said, no, nothing doing. Governments will have no business to even fetch the CDRs or locations of the infected people. Now, in a month, when UK started seeing number of deaths in thousands every day, the same very information body, which is the highest, body to protect the privacy rights in that oldest democracy in the world, the so-called Westminster system we follow, their opinion was that government of United Kingdom must adopt every possible technological means at its disposal to do so-called technological surveillance to ensure that we are able to do maximum amount of contact tracing and we are able to prevent a massive outbreak.
Okay.
So, in the chimes of such challenges, which are once in 60 or 70 years of our history, sometimes technology might do, little bit of damage to our fundamental rights of privacy as a temporary, I would say, in a stage. But all these things can be restored. All that data could be destroyed, but the lives which have been saved will stay throughout. So that's where I think use of technology, even at times, if it feels a bit of excessive use, we must support it. Second, the use of technology and innovation to conduct all sort of COVID tests. I think 3 IITs introduced X-ray-based identification of COVID infection in the people. So there are all sort of innovations which have been happening in the sense of delivery supply. And the last point I want to make, you see, in last 25 years, we have made a huge transaction from a agricultural sector-based economy to a technology and industrial sector-based economy. If it was not for technology, the whole IT sector of India in last 7 months would have collapsed. I mean, you could not have imagined 85% workforce working from work from home using technology and secure communication 20 years ago. But today, I think it came as a blessing, as a sector-saving technology or this thing. And if IT sector was to collapse, I can bet that whole economy would have been in deep distress. So technology has come as a blessing. There might have been some, views of excessive use in terms of monitoring, but I think all these things are temporary. These are transient phases in nature. A year from now, once the vaccines are out, all these excessive measures would be rolled back and the life would be back to normal.
Okay, there it is. As far as technology is concerned, played a very important role. Ashokji, I'd like to bring you in here on these two aspects. One, as Urvashi was pointing out, that challenges were galore, a quite number of them, and striking a fine balance while making a decision in a democratic country and an elected government have always been challenging in these particular times. The second is, the use of technology there. It looks like innovation seems to have got a lot of push in the past few months or so. Our own, in-house companies, researchers, scientists have come up with a lot of innovative solutions to the problems which have been caused by COVID-19.
Certainly, first of all, I would like to point out the cooperative federalism which is working in India, and that was really on display during pandemic. You see the cooperation between the central government and the state government. So there has been perfect balance, and that is why the states, they were given all the facilities, whether it is in regard to the paramedics or even other drugs or any help. And so I think with such a diverse country where we have different parties ruling different states at the center. But during pandemic, this equation, the cooperative federalism, I think we have shown to the world how a country like India can work. And similarly, even as you also very rightly pointed out, there was only one testing lab in India. Now there are 1,600 testing labs. Now, all the aims spread all over the country are engaged in, fighting this pandemic, also cooperating in vaccine development. So I think the technology certainly has helped India, but the innovations, as you also mentioned, nobody imagined that BHEL would be, manufacturing, or Maruti would be manufacturing ventilators. And now there is no dearth of medical equipment in this country, medicines in this country, whether it is ventilator or mask or any other related ICUs. So I think we have risen to the occasion, and this pandemic has very rightly a challenge, has given us an opportunity to not only streamline Indian system and also show to the world how a democracy functions in India, where all the 130 million people are rising to the occasion and cooperating. So I think many world democracies are watching. The migrant labor issue has been tackled very well with the help and cooperation of the state government. 800 million people were given free ration, free food, and this can never happen in any other countries. So therefore, I think when we look at the pandemic and also review the International Day of Democracy, I think we have not been found wanting on any front. And therefore, we are, in fact, cooperating with the rest of the world. In fact, all the largest democracies in the world in fighting this pandemic and also strengthening our democratic setup.
Okay, and one more aspect, Ashokji, when we're talking about technology and dealing with pandemic, is a key aspect here is to communicate properly, and technology seems to have been put in good use to ensure that the communication with the common man, with the citizens of the country is proper, and that misinformation or fake news is tackled at an equal pace.
I'm afraid, unfortunately, there are elements in our society who are misusing these communication channels and facilities for fake news, and the social media is playing havoc. But still, within the democratic framework, within the existing laws, I think authorities, not only the central authorities, but the state authorities are also tackling this situation. But it's a huge challenge. And we have to maintain our democratic setup also, and at the same time ensure if there is any violation, we have to enforce law agencies into it. But still, as I said earlier, there is a checks and balance system. Anybody who feels aggrieved because of any excessive measures of any state government or any other enforcement agency, the courts are there to do the remedial measure. And our courts have shown that they are independent and they have done justice to many complainants. But at the same time, I think there is an element in our society who unfortunately is still misusing the communication system and the technology, whether it is fake news or in fact propaganda by vested interest. In fact, we should not forget that across the border, there is an attempt to mislead and have disinformation campaign among our society to create chaos. With all these challenges, I think we have come out very well. And today, when we stand here, I think we can say that we have fought all these situations, all these challenges, and also maintain our democratic traditions.
Okay. So there are still challenges as far as misinformation campaigns or putting a stop to misutilization of social media or technology is concerned. And obviously, laws are there. Work is still underway. There are certain acts and drafts which are in public domain. We'll talk about them later on. But Urvashi, coming back to you on these two aspects. One, the use of technology, and second, as Mr. Tandon was pointing out, cooperative federalism seems to have worked really well. And the one reason why we are talking about is because making strategies or making policies is one thing. but implementing them on the ground and ensuring that all organs of the democratically elected federal government work in tandem with each other, starting from the lowest level at the municipal or village level, panchayat level, to the highest at the central government.
Yes, absolutely. So I think on cooperative federalism, and of course Niti Aayog is meant to and mandated to play a major role in that. And I think we've seen close collaboration at all levels of the government, and as I also said, outside the government, working whether with startups or with civil society. The aspirational districts, I would particularly like to point out, these are some of our least developed districts, and yet we have been able to keep the number of COVID cases here fairly low. And this would not have been possible if we had not truly engaged with a diverse range of stakeholders, with community-based organizations, with self-help groups, with the district magistrates and the district collectors. So it's truly been a collaborative effort which has allowed us to keep COVID in check in some of even our most least, sort of developed districts, which are the aspirational districts. The second point, on the technology, and I'll sort of make a broader point here linked to the acts and the laws, which you also touched upon. The Epidemic Act, of course, which we have, was created somewhere in the 1800s. And I think it would really benefit us if we use the lessons that we have learned from this pandemic, and we come up with a comprehensive public health act which can define the powers of different authorities as well as the limits to those powers. For instance, we've seen resident welfare associations have been very powerful partners in managing containment zones, etc. But in some cases, we've had instances where RWAs might have overstepped their brief. So similarly, technology has been a very empowering factor. But we also need to make people understand their individual responsibility and accountability in a pandemic, that, while you might have individual freedoms to say what you want or to do what you want, in a pandemic situation, you have to think of collective responsibility as well. If you're not wearing a mask, you're not just damaging yourself, you're damaging people around you. Or if you're putting out some fake news, you're possibly damaging a lot of people out there. So I think we can use these lessons and we can codify them and templatize them in the form of an updated and comprehensive Public Health Act. And I think that will really help us in the future.
Okay. Collective responsibility here is one very important aspect, as Urvashi said, and taking everybody along, learning from what we have experienced so far. Let's have concluding comments from Jiten before we bring this discussion to an end. Jiten, the way forward from here in terms of what we have learned and how it can be implemented further to boost or strengthen the democratic setup.
You see, obviously, technology did play a crucial role, during the survival of this democracy during COVID. I mean, whatever we are seeing in terms of education sector, be it, digital schooling or Zoom classes or webinars or work from homes, all this has come courtesy technology. But there have been challenges of disinformation, as you rightly pointed out. So if you look at an Indian context in the last 6 months, we have faced two sort of misinformation campaigns. One is by individuals who post about, unverified treatments of COVID, unverified information, and creating some, homemade remedies. Politician posting about if you eat this sweet of 1600 kgs, you would not get COVID. So all those, tricky campaigns. But the larger challenge has been the mischievous coordinated disinformation campaign originating from state actors sitting out of Pakistan. So on your channel, we pointed out how ISPR was running a massive propaganda campaign in India to influence Indian Muslims using TikTok, Facebook and Twitter not to follow COVID-19 lockdown guidelines. So that is the challenge. I think we all as a society must understand that technology is here to serve us. We must make the maximum use of it. And if there are any challenges of potential misuse, I think we can bring in new laws. There are existing mechanisms within the National Disaster Management Act to take care of the miscreants who are spreading fake news. But just because something over excessive use might happen, we must not take a stand that we would not allow the technology to be used to its fullest potential. That's my only take.
Okay. So there it is, various aspects of as far as challenges are concerned from this particular pandemic with respect to democratic setup or the overall concept of democracy we spoke about. Thank you so much, Jiten, Urvashi, and Ashokji, for sharing your time and views with us and our viewers. As our panelists are pointing out, the challenges have been quite a lot in terms of social, cultural, as well as political, and the governments have acted in tandem. Specifically in India, the Indian democratic elected government has acted swiftly within the ambit of the laws of the land, and there are certain aspects, there are a lot of experiences which we need to learn from and perhaps tweak our strategies, policies or the laws in future to try and deal with similar situations. But as citizens also, it is our responsibility wherever we are to strengthen the concept of democracy in whichever way we can. Thank you so much for watching Rajya Sabha Television. We'll come back again tomorrow with a different topic. Thank you.